I know the food is delicious, but just chew, not talk. The red jars are the jars with the red ribbons, Youth for Christ contributions. If you don't know what Youth for Christ is, Libby Sanderson is one of our members. She is the executive director for Youth for Christ. And she goes into the schools to teach these young girls and boys about Christ. There's a couple of schools that still allow that in Indian River County, so as long as we can do it, we want to support it. So thank you so much for your contributions.
Thank you all for being here today, and I just want to introduce our candidates. We've got Jackie Rosario, District 2 School Board, Josh Post, District 2 School Board, and Thomas Kinney, District 4. And we appreciate you all coming, and it's not easy to run for office, so thanks so much for being here and answering our questions. Thank you.
Okay, our format is very similar to the one that we had for the state rep candidates. Each candidate will be given time for an opening statement. Instead of 3 minutes, it'll only be 2 minutes today because there are 3 candidates as opposed to the 2 candidates we had for the state house race. So they'll have a 2-minute each opening statement. Then there's 4 questions that will be asked, the same ones for each candidate. Again, 2-minute response time. Instead of us putting together the questions, we thought it best to kind of farm it out. So the first question will be is from a retired educator. The second question is from a current faculty member. The third is from a parent of a school child. And the fourth is from a current student in the River County school system. After you respond to all of those, you'll each randomly pick one question here from the audience and have 2 minutes to respond to that, and then a 2-minute closing statement. Okay, so no better way to go than ladies first. So Jackie, if you want to lead off with a 2-minute opening statement.
Hi everyone. Is this on? Hi everyone. Thank you for being here. I appreciate your presence. My name is Jackie Rosario. I am an educator, a mom, a woman of faith, an educator. With nearly 30 years experience and your current school board member for District 2. So I am rerunning for my position and I was elected in 2018 and I thought I knew what the job of a school board member was back in 2018, but it really wasn't until the pandemic that I understood the gravity and the decisions that a school board member makes and how the decisions impact the lives of students and their families. Obviously, with the mask mandates and all of the shutdowns, it brought seriousness to the district. Within the last year, we have also been faced with social and political issues such as critical race theory, the library books, and most recently was the LGBTQ administrative guide. All of which are items that I have worked very hard to research, to hold the superintendent accountable, to hold school board members accountable, including myself, because we are not above the law. Our responsibility to the Constitution is to uphold the law and to do what is right and just by kids in our county. And so that's what I hope to earn your vote for, to prove to you that I am the candidate, the common sense conservative candidate. I've also been recently endorsed by Governor Ron DeSantis, so I'm excited about that. So again, on August 23rd, if you can vote for me, Jackie Rosario, you can find more information at reelectjackie.com. That's reelectjackie.com. Thank you.
Okay, Josh, why don't you take 2 minutes?
Good afternoon. I'm Josh Post. I'm running for School Board District 2. Tell you a little bit about me. I'm a former teacher in the district. I taught at Storm Grove Middle School for 6.5 years, algebra honors, geometry honors, and pre-algebra. And so I'm analytical by nature, a math person, so numbers are part of my game. And one of the things that I would definitely encourage us to look at is 58% of third graders passing at level 3 is 58% acceptable. That's what everybody at the district is really happy about, 58%. Now I can tell you as a former math teacher at Storm Grove Middle School, I had an end of course exam, the Algebra 1 end of course exam. And other than the first year I taught, because I had no idea what that test even looked like, I had 100% passing ratio. 100%. And they weren't level 3. They were level 4 or level 5. So we're talking the best of the best. And that didn't matter whether it was from, algebra as a 7th grader, algebra as an 8th grader, geometry as an 8th grader. So my encouragement is I want to talk a little bit about who I am as a person. I'm married, I have 4 kids, all graduates of Indian River County schools. My youngest son aged out of the public school system. He's 22 and has autism. So he's going to be starting Project Stage, which is a great program, a new program, Indian River State College. I have a grandson who's 4, and I could not sit back anymore and see what was going on. Okay, we have the social agendas that are trying to be pushed into the school system. It's obvious. Again, completely unacceptable. I'll fight against everything that comes, critical race theory, all of those things that are trying to be pushed in to our public school system. Social agendas do not belong in the public school system. We need to focus on what needs the priority, which is educating our children. It is extremely important. I want to ask a question. You don't have to raise your hand. How many of you have been to a public school in the last 5 years? Not many. Thank you.
All right, Thomas?
Hi, my name is Thomas Kenny. I'm running for School Board District 4. I'm not in 2, I'm in 4, but you get to vote for all of us. I'm a 20-year background in mass media and also entertainment and events, and currently I am a self-employed taxpayer in Indian River County. I got into this race because, quite honestly, I've been going to school board meetings in the past year and seeing a lot of different things regarding how things are done governmentally, and the issues where the parents had great concerns and they were being ignored. For me, it's about citizen participation in the government being protected, parental rights, taxpayer accountability, and student discipline. A lot of the issues that are going on right now with mental health, with LGBTQIA, critical race theory, and the like, is a lot of pressures being put on by outside political groups and nonprofits to get at the budget that you pay for. I feel for me as a citizen and a taxpayer like you, I'm there to protect the school system from these encroachments. It is very important that we can do these things that way so education can be the priority. There's even been complaints from the school board members, some of them, that we're not talking about education and student achievement. Well, that's because you are allowing these things to happen. And that's why I'm running. At the end of the day, a school board representative is an elected official who is representing you. They are not representing the interests of administrators and all these different people. They're representing you. And that's what I want to do. I think with deliberative action that each government person takes, we can have good law. You know, parental rights.
Thomas, you received the 2 minutes.
Okay, I'll talk more about that later. Thank you. Vote for me.
We'll give you about 10 seconds of grace, but after that we're going to have to cut you off. Just so everybody else is well informed, all of the candidates for these open seats were asked and invited, and some declined, and that's why we have these 3 folks here today. All right, the last shall be first, so Thomas, we're going to let you go to answer the first question, again from a retired educator. It's a 2-part question. Do you think our school district is top-heavy, meaning that we have too many highly paid administrators and not enough teachers, teachers' aides, and substitute teachers? Second part of the question is, why should teachers who have very little free time during the school day be forced to cover other teachers' classes when subs aren't available? Should administrators be required to serve as subs on a regular rotating basis?
I do think we're top heavy. And I just sort of addressed some of that, and that's why. Currently, there's a committee called the Climate Committee. The Climate Committee was originally started to address the desegregation order. Currently, it's addressing mental health, and they're bringing in mental health experts to be hired. Now, to do real counseling, you have to have PhDs and all that and certifications, and so they're starting slow. Ms. Rosario here asked a question at a business meeting of the superintendent's workshop, when they brought this forward and they did their big presentation. She said, "What is your research?" And there's about 15 members on this committee. And they said, "Well, we asked the 15 members on the committee, put your top 3 interests that you think are most important to the school board," and it was overwhelmingly mental health. That's not research. That's just a shift in focus for a specific reason. And that creates top-heavy bureaucracy. This type of money can be used to hire more teachers. Look, at the end of the day, a teacher's position is a competitive thing that we have to go recruit. And so how can we do that? Well, we can take that money and maybe offer a proposal where you get a signing bonus that would equal, say, a security deposit. So they could get moved into this town and start working straight away and not have all these pressures that happen in daily life. Because right now we are 22nd in teacher salary in the state out of 67 counties, not bad. But we're, the CFO just said at the trim notice meeting, in 2.5 years, housing prices have gone up 145,000. So you see the disparity a little bit between income and cost of living. So we have to address that issue. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to be going to Jackie next. Jackie, I'll repeat the question. Again, it's a two-parter. Do you think our school district is top-heavy, meaning that we have too many highly paid administrators and not enough teachers, teachers' aides, and substitute teachers? And secondary to that, why should teachers who have very little free time during the school day be forced to cover other teachers' classes when subs aren't available? Should administrators be required to serve as subs on a regular rotating basis?
Okay, I'm going to try to get all 3 of those. So yes, I think that we are too top-heavy. I have brought that up at workshops and at board meetings multiple times. I've even brought that up to the superintendent privately in our meetings. I think that we have way too many administrators and not enough teachers, not enough support staff. One of the examples that I can share with you now is about deans. One of the positions that I have been rooting for is a dean of discipline to be in our schools. In our conversations, both publicly and privately, some of the push for the deans, which would be a teacher position, sometimes it's somebody who has an administrative certification, but for the most part, it is a teacher position, not teaching in the classroom, only doing the dean of discipline work. And instead, the administration, the current superintendent and his team are recommending assistant principals to do that work instead. And when I ask why, the answer is always the administrators you can get more bang for your buck essentially because they can do more things. But that's not the role of a dean. We should not pay assistant principals more money to be a glorified dean when you can hire a teacher to have that role. And yes, I do think that teachers need reprieve from some of the substitute assignments, some of the hall room assignments, hallway duties, bus duties. I think they need time to prepare. I think that they need time to get into their classroom, be with their students, and prepare their creative lessons, which is the most important thing for a teacher, right? I also think there was a third part of that question, but I'll say with regard to relieving the teachers of that sub-duty, that's also a union issue. That's something that needs to be negotiated between the teachers and their union representatives. So that's really not something that we would be able to implement essentially right away. But if the teachers have that issue, they can bring it up to their union rep, and then obviously we can take care of it at the district level, at our level. Thank you.
Josh, do you need the questions repeated, or?
No, I think so are we top heavy? Yeah, I think you have to look at all numbers when it comes to administration. Seems like a lot of people move in different positions within the district office. They go from one position to a different position to a different position, et cetera. So I think we have to evaluate, really take a look at the overall demographics of what that looks like financially. And like we talked about, you might be able to hire one administrator or one person at the district and hire 2 teachers. So when, the issue that we have, and again, this is a great community, but education is going to be extremely important to have a viable community in 10 to 15 to 20 years, because these students that are leaving us are going to be in a position where if they have no skill, they're going to be a drag on society instead of helping society. Society is going to be taking care of them rather than other things. So I think we have to look at the teacher shortage, significant issues. Every year we can't find teachers. So that's a huge thing. So the recruiting, incentivization of people coming here, keeping good teachers, that's also really important. So it can't just be getting new ones. We got to keep the ones that are good. We got to keep those folks here as well. So incentivize around that, number one. In regards to should teachers cover, hey listen, I covered. I was a teacher in this district for 6.5 years. If there's an emergent situation, somebody's child got hurt, their parent got hurt, whatever, any teacher worth their grain of salt is going to say, yes, I'm going to go cover for that teacher. Because that's our job. Now, the reality is could it be abused? Then we're talking different things if you have to do it all the time. But if it's an emergent situation, I got no problem with that. In addition, though, should administrators come in and do that role if need be? Absolutely. In fact, I knew quite a few administrators in this district that were doing that during the COVID portion when teachers were out and because they could not be at school and they were covering other classrooms, etc. So it is happening. Obviously, we want to limit it because the responsibility of the teacher is to educate. Let's be realistic. It is their job to get prepared, get these students prepared.
Jackie, you're going to be the first one to answer the second question. This is from a current faculty member. Also a 2-part question. First, we are seeing a dramatic increase in violent behavior by students in our schools.
Can you? I don't think that mic is working.
Yeah, I don't think this mic is working. Try this. All right, this is from a current faculty member. We are seeing a dramatic increase in violent behavior by students in our schools. What do you think is the root cause, and what is your practical plan for addressing it? Secondly, how do you see the role of parents in the public school system, and should teachers check their political opinions at the door?
So some of the things that I think are causing the discipline issues is the lack of follow-up with the discipline. It is the lack of supporting teachers when a student is misbehaving in the classroom. Students can be removed from the classroom, but very shortly after that they're being returned to the classroom and very little follow-up is offered to the student. And I think that needs to change. That's one of the reasons why I'm advocating for deans of students, deans of discipline, because deans are created, trained, specially trained in the schools to help deal with the discipline issues differently than regular assistant principals who are pulled in so many different directions. I do think that the social emotional learning aspect and the social issues that are happening in today's society are also adding to the discipline issues that are occurring in the classrooms. I think that teachers need to be supported on classroom management as well. And I think parents play a critical role. Parents are responsible and for the upbringing and the well-being of their child. They are responsible and they should have a role with what is happening in the classrooms. They should be brought in. I would love for parents to come in and observe their kids in the classroom as often as they can. But we have a lot of parents who work full-time. A lot of parents are pulled also in many different directions and can't be there as often as they would wish. But we do need to do better at recruiting parent participation and ensuring that parents volunteer in the classroom and making sure that parents understand that the behavior that is happening in the classroom, did I just miss my, that the behavior that is happening in the classroom is being followed up appropriately so that the parents can be pulled in as a partner, not as someone who is a stranger. And that's something that we need to change.
All right, Josh, you're going to be next. You need the question repeated?
Yep. In regards to discipline, this is a big hot point button for me. It's huge, folks. The lack of discipline. And it's not necessarily discipline meaning we're going to discipline by spanking or, get it a referral or kick them out of school for out-of-school suspension. Discipline in general is training yourself to have self-control in certain situations. Well, that's not happening. And the reality is I've been bringing this up for quite a while now. The school board and the school district is sidestepping this, has been sidestepping this, has not addressed it. And recently, after I brought all these things up, like an exact scenario that happened when I was teaching at Storm Grove Middle School, I break up a fight, 2 kids, I send them to the office, walk them to the office, I go back to type them up, put an ODR, a referral, into the computer, and I get a call from the administrator that says, don't put them into the computer, I went in and handled that. Folks, so if you're just seeing the tip of the iceberg, the ones that are actually getting written up, how many of those are not getting written up? So the reality is we can sit here and say a dean will work and all this stuff. What we have to do is back the administration. You talk to administrators, they had their hands tied until after the fight at the Flick, where you had 6 different fights at one time. Finally, after that occurred, the district said, I'm going to go ahead and you can start to suspend kids. That's a shame. It is 100% shameful that has occurred. So the reality is we can sit here and say all these things, but it's occurring. And again, I'm going to go back to the question, when is the last time you've been to a public school and watched the behavior? Watch in between classes. See what it's like. You would be scared. I'm telling you right now, you would be scared. In addition to political opinions at the door, to check those at the door, yeah, I don't think any political opinion. Now, I think my political opinion is right, conservative, etc., but it's not my right to try to convince another child, someone else's child, about my political opinions. Because guess what? I wouldn't want a liberal doing that to my son or sons and my daughters. So ultimately, we have to recognize we should be impartial.
Thomas, would you like the questions repeated?
Yeah, name my mic then.
Okay. Let me give you the questions. We're seeing a dramatic increase in violent behavior by students in our schools. What do you think is the root cause, and what is your practical plan for addressing it? Part 2 is, how do you see the role of parents in the public school system? And should teachers check their political opinions at the door?
I think there's a couple things that, in regards to discipline. First off, the political opinion question thing is very simple. Yeah, check them at the door. You're there to teach English, math, history. You might be in the social sciences and politics will be addressed, but you have to be an objective observer so kids can have the opportunity to think about the subjects you're talking about. But other than that, yeah, leave them at the door. I don't know what chemistry has to do with political feelings, so you get what I'm saying. Secondly, I think our school system has to become consistent. Equality before the disciplinary code is how I would put it, or equality before the law. Look what it says on page 7 of our strategic plan. Under focus, equity, culture, and climate, that's where you find your discipline. Page 7, target goals of the focus area, points 1 and 2 state. Eliminate out-of-school suspension by increasing the use of alternatives to suspension. Okay, that might help. We have some good alternatives if they're nice, disciplinary actions. But number 2, this is what really gets me. Eliminate disparities in classroom removals of all racial ethnic subgroups of students so that risk ratios for subgroup comparisons are equal to 1.0. What is that telling you? In short, you're segregating your discipline by race. Kids know this. Don't think they don't. And they'll take advantage of it. I believe in a dean program for one reason, because I call it a discipline and mentorship dean program. Because look, the deans are in the hallways every day, and they're there to discipline and mentor kids into that discipline. There's the external threats that we've had, and since Parkland, Florida schools have really done well. but deans inside could be that person to make sure all those internal things, doors being open, things like that, also are taken care of. But the most important thing is getting engaged with your student body on levels that are not done, that haven't been done before.
Thank you. This third question is, Josh will go first, and it's from a parent of a current student in the school system. I have heard that in many cases of school shootings, the perpetrator has had a history of mental illness, is on mental health medication, or has exhibited violent or antisocial behavior. What can and should our local school board do to help identify such individuals, to get them the help they need, and prevent future tragedies without violating privacy rights?
In regards to mental illness and mental health, pretty scary situation that we're in our country today. Anxiety runs high with kids today. You know, we fought through it. I did as a young man. I didn't even know it was anxiety. I just had it and just fought through it. And today, everybody's got anxiety. They're on meds, etc., it seems like. A couple things that I would suggest that we have to do is we need to make sure, obviously, within the privacy guidelines, is to make sure if we see something, we say something. It's that simple. I can give you a scenario of a student that came up to me. He was an 8th grade algebra student, and he came up to me, and he shook my hand on a Friday. And he came up to me, and he said, "Goodbye, Mr. Post." Just like that. And I was going to my planning period. And I sat down, and I started doing work. And that internal voice, the Lord just said, "You need to do something about this." I went up to the school district, or the front office. I went to the guidance counselor, and I said, "This may be nothing, but that almost seemed like that kid's going to go home, and he's not coming back." And so I went, and they called him up, and everything was okay. But it was the see something, say something. We have to be observant. You have to get to know these kids, and not just, you don't have to be their buddy. You can hold them accountable, but you have to be observant and make sure that if you see something that's different, that you address it. So that's the first thing. Obviously, within the district, we talk about deans, we talk about all these different things. For the guidance portion of what we have is these kids need that mental health counseling if it's needed, if they see it's needed. We have a MTSS, multi-tiered support system, for kids that have behavioral issues, etc. We need to not just kind of continue to roll the ball down the road. We'll keep going. We'll try these 18 different things before something happens, right? If we see something early, then address it earlier. Don't continue to roll the ball down. I mean, there were scenarios where kids could literally be tardy 21 times at Storm Grove Middle School before they'd get a detention. 21. So we have to recognize these things and address them up front.
All right, Thomas, you need the question repeated?
Yeah.
Okay. It is from a parent. I have heard that in many cases of school shootings, the perpetrator has had a history of mental illness, is on mental health medication, or has exhibited violent or antisocial behavior. What can and should our local school board do to help identify such individuals, to get them the help they need, and to prevent future tragedies without violating privacy rights?
The first thing you have to do is, when you see something, say something. Cord's caught, so sorry. You do have to see something, say something, and then the next person you say it to is their parent. That's what parental rights is all about. You know, a lot of what happened with Parkland is that young man was basically ignored. They let him slide through the system, slide through the system, slide through the system. The Uvalde gentleman, same thing. And there was a guy, if you look at his history, his innocence was taken away by bullying. And it built up in his own mind, and he decided to take the innocent out. And that's sad. You have to be very proactive, but you have to get the parents involved. And then you find out whether or not there's neglect or abuse. And that's when you probably have to bring the state in. Of course you do. That's our charge. But you have to get the parent involved. Say, we are aware of this. What are you going to do? What is your position for your family in taking care of this child? And then support that family any way possible to help that restorative process to take place. But just letting it go is not going to work. And then not telling the parents until something crazy happens, whether mild or extreme, is not going to work either. That family has to be involved on day one. That is the most important thing of parental rights, is getting transparency with the parents.
Jackie, would you like the question repeated?
No, thank you. That's okay, thank you. So, what the question at the beginning was, what can the school board do? The school board can ensure that policies and procedures are in place, that school related issues with regard to mental health, mental well-being, guidance counseling, and so on, are addressed through the view of what are the policies and the procedures, what are the systems that are in place to address these issues. From the school's perspective, we cannot now offer guidance counseling, group counseling, or any other kind of mental health supports without the parent's permission. So what used to be done can now no longer be done in that fashion, in that manner. We have to ask the parent for permission. We have to involve the parent. Transparency is key here. We have to bring the parent in and let the parent know what their options are, which is what we are working on. We have just approved a policy, or rather it's out for public comment now, that will address this exact issue and allow for a checklist for parents to allow their child in group counseling, in individual counseling, and some of the other health screenings that are available, and some of the other things that we provide at the school level. But I will tell you that we have not, as a school board member, I have not received data, and I have been asking for it for weeks. I want to see the data of our mental health issues. I want to see the numbers. I have not been given any numbers. I have not been given any numbers to show and prove that there is a true critical mental health issue in our county. There might be in other counties and in other states, but thus far, I have not been given those. So that's a concern for me. Why are we spending $14 million? $14 million in our budget that's being represented right now, or being proposed right now, for mental health services. It's mental health specialists, guidance counselors, and so on and so forth. What are they doing? And I'm not saying that there aren't issues. My point is, where is the data to support it? So we have to take another look at those issues that way.
Thank you. All right, the fourth question is from a current student in the school system. And Thomas, you're going to go first on this one. It says, even with current prevention measures, the use of drugs like vape and marijuana during school hours can make a school feel more dangerous for students. Do you have any plans to crack down on drug abuse within the school system, and if so, what are they?
Kids are very shifty. You know, they open up their vape pens, they put the THC inside of it, and then they go smoke it in the parking lot. Know exactly what they're doing. I think it's something that our SROs, our security resource officers, are highly aware of. But once again, kids are shifty, and so we just have to be more proactive. This is another place where deans become effective. Look, an assistant principal who's over discipline can spend all day doing discipline and never leave their office, because they're also working with student services. They're also looking at curriculum. They're also doing all the operational things along with the principal in the office. But if you have people who are deans of discipline mentoring kids and starting to see the relationships and the culture around stuff like this every day on the ground in the student body, then you have a better chance of snagging it before it happens. There's a possibility with deans in the Freshman Learning Center that event doesn't occur, because it could have been found out just by having that discipline measure present relating to the kids every day. They'll know the good kids, they'll know the kids trying to do bad stuff, they'll know everyone. And so it's important that I think we address that way, and take care of that. People specifically designed to be in the school system every day who are not police officers. Kids know how to hide from a guy in a uniform. But can they hide from someone who's relating with them on a daily basis? Not as easy.
Jackie, do you need the question repeated?
No, thank you. We already have a policy on no vaping and no drugs and no alcohol and no substance abuse. I think the problem that happens is that students go into bathrooms and they know that no one can go into the bathroom when they're in there, and so that's where they're doing the vaping and the other illegal stuff that they're supposed to do, that they are doing. Not that they're supposed to, that they're not supposed to do. So recently at the Flick, there was a concern that came to my attention, and of course I brought it up to the superintendent, and as we were brainstorming, I said, well, where are the canines? Why don't we have more canine presence in our schools? We need to raise the presence of canine dogs so that they are with our SROs, obviously, and so kids can see, there's zero tolerance for this stuff. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. And the presence in the bathroom kind of decreased a little bit, and then the end of the school year happened. But I think that that's one of the things that we can implement right away, is the use of having higher presence of canines able to smell and sniff illegal substances, and then again, bring it back to discipline. If you have something on you or you are found, there has to be a consequence. There has to be a consequence so that we can set the example and make sure that they know that this is unacceptable behavior. It is illegal. And if it's illegal, it should not be allowed on our school campuses, just like anything else. We have to set the example for students so that they understand that they cannot sell, use, do, or share any illegal substance, including vaping. So we have to make sure that that is a consistent policy and a procedure, and that law enforcement is brought into the picture to help us establish that. Thank you.
Josh, would you like the question repeated?
Well, it's obviously a societal issue. It's a society issue. In certain cultures, marijuana is totally acceptable. Some kids see their parents smoke marijuana. So try to battle that from a teacher perspective, from a school district, very challenging. So I can appreciate the student who's got concerns about feeling safe at school around vaping. When I was a student years and years ago, it was smoking in the bathroom, right? Kids would go in there, smoke in the bathroom. You'd walk in, you'd be like, oh my gosh, couldn't even go to the bathroom because it smelled so bad, right? So we have a problem in our society with marijuana being accepted. And so ultimately what we have to recognize is we need to set examples with those students that actually get caught with these things, and you need to show the other students. And I'm going to give you an example. I talked to a sheriff's officer who was at the Flick after the 6 fights. And when they pulled that paddy wagon up and all those kids saw all those kids going to jail, that was what needed to be seen by these students. That's what needs to be seen when these kids have marijuana on them. They need to see them cuffed and walked out because it is illegal to do. And it's illegal in our schools. So people, if you think about it, young minds, when they see, oh my gosh, I'm in a scenario where that could be me if I do that, it's going to stop a few of those kids from doing it. Might not stop everybody, right? Let's be realistic. There's going to be people that always push the boundaries, always have been, always will be. But if you can stop that from happening, and again, it goes back to see something, say something. That is extremely important. Obviously, it is paramount for parents to be involved with their kids, to know who they're hanging with, etc. Think about it. I'm a grandparent now. I've got a 4-year-old. If he was hanging around the wrong kids, I'm going to say something to my daughter. I'd say like, hey to him, let's try to find different folks to hang around. But when you're not involved as a parent, you don't know what these kids are doing. So again, back to this, they need to be shown. People need to see it, and it will make a difference.
All right, the final questions are being asked from folks here in the audience today. There'll be one question for each of you, and you're going to select them at random, all right? Three questions and then a whole meeting. All right, the question for Jackie is it the role of the members of the school board to defer to the superintendent or consult with the superintendent? Please explain your perspective.
That's a perfect question for me. No, it is not the role of the school board to defer to the superintendent. The superintendent is our employee. We hire him, we supervise him, we give him an annual evaluation. It is our responsibility to work with the superintendent, but not to defer all things to him. The role of the school board is to approve policy, approve procedure that are connected to policy or law, to establish the working relationship, obviously, between ourselves and the school board, school district, but also to make sure that we are asking the tough questions. So if the superintendent, who is the CEO, and he's in charge of the daily operations, so we set the policy, he makes them happen. If the superintendent is doing something at the school district, at the school level or on the ground level, the daily operations that are in violation with our policies and our procedures, then it's up to us to hold him accountable for that. And that's the role of the school board. Our job is to ask the tough questions, like I said, make sure that we are functioning as a board and with the superintendent in collaboration, but certainly not to rubber stamp everything that he brings to us. That is not me. I am not a rubber stamper. So I would be happy to continue in this role to hold him accountable and to hold the school board members accountable as well. I think some of the school board members would like to go rogue on some of the things that they have their own personal agenda with. But no, we have to work together, and it is not up to him to just decide carte blanche what he wants to do.
This is the question for Josh, and again, you have 2 minutes to respond. How would you inject pro-life values into school curriculum for all ages?
I think as you look at pro-life values, right, in terms of education around options for people, you know, we talk about like Roe versus Wade, obviously was overturned at the federal level, but we still have issues here within our state. So we need to expand the knowledge of students of what's available. I've been a longtime supporter of CareNet, have been donated, my wife has worked there, volunteered time there as well. People need to know that there are options available to them. Most people do not really, most students, especially young folks, don't even know that there are options available to these folks. So again, it goes back to that parental concept of being parental rights. Can't overstep, right? It's the same thing if a kid came up to a guidance counselor and said, I want to have an abortion, I'm pregnant, I want to have an abortion, you know, hopefully they're going to say, well, we need to contact the parent, regardless of the scenario. So I think we have to recognize as we go forward, it is a very slippery slope, because if you involve the pro-life portion of it, which I'm for sure 100% pro-life, when you involve that, you are going to open Pandora's box for other things to come in. I'm a Christian, so let's think about it from this perspective. If I said, you know what, we should have teachings about Christ, that should be an option for students, etc. Well, then any Muslim could come in, any Hindu could come in, etc. You have to be extremely careful of what you think might be a very good idea value-wise can also open up things for our students as well. So I think you have to be very careful, you have to be cautious. But I do think options, giving folks options that they have the ability to look and make that decision. Unfortunately, are there going to be situations where people make a not great choice? Yeah, obviously. Millions and millions of babies, right? Let's be realistic. But if we can help them to understand that there are more options, that's the key to me, but we have to be very careful in doing it. It's a great question. I don't have the answer exactly. I'll be very candid with you. I don't have the answer, and if you do, please feel free to share it with me, because I don't really have the true answer on how you could do that, implement it in the schools.
No peeking?
All right, Thomas. Could you please explain why the Learning Alliance
Oh, I got the one.
and Indian River County NGO, which is supported by progressive national and international NGOs, that's non-government organizations, has gained so much influence with the school district of Indian River County?
well, I touched on this earlier, and these things need to be examined. It's gained a lot of influence because it's given a lot of money and given a lot of help. But there's also a lot of other, I think, nefarious political agenda that comes through NGOs. You know, non-governmental organizations are just, look, Jackie can speak to this better than I because she saw it in the front lines. I've read about it repeatedly. Glenn Singleton, he's the one behind the critical race theory for professional development. It was called Courageous Conversations. That's the first installment in a plan to teach professional development teachers and administrators how about their whiteness and all these other silly questions. So they create the problem. They say, hey, you got a problem. You got an inherent bias, or you got to inherit this, or you got to inherit that. And then they offer you the solution at, Ibram X. Kendi was $20,000 an hour. And they're looking at a $300 million school system going, let's rake it over the coals. So that's what I'm looking at. And as far as I can tell, the Learning Alliance, they're not doing that. They're trying to teach kids they have goals, 90% literacy. It's a moonshot. And they're investing towards that. So if they start bringing in other NGOs to do this and that, and professional development and transformative social emotional learning, which is the synonym now for social justice. You know what this does to students? Gets them off of education and it turns them into activists because they have to now choose a side. That's what they're being taught to do based on these nefarious theories. And so that's what we have to put a stop to.
All right, before your 2-minute closing statement, on behalf of Republicans for Life, I want to thank you for your courage and commitment and concern, stepping up and being willing to serve, and also for your courtesy in accepting our invitation. Let's give them a warm round of applause. The 2-minute closing statement will go Josh, then Thomas, and then Jackie.
Again, I'm Josh Post, a runner for School Board District 2. I would appreciate your vote on August 23rd. I've been in the trenches for 6.5 years in this district. I've seen things that nobody else has seen. Nobody's talked about, nobody's brought up until I brought those up. So I think what we have to recognize is that it's easy to go, oh, well, this is an issue now, let's address it. But where were these things previously? We cannot just, I'm totally against any social agendas in the public school system, but we can't just focus on the social agendas. We have to focus on the education part too. If we focus on one and not the other, vice versa, if we just do education and that's all, that's a great thing because that's the calling of the district. It's to educate the students in this district. It's not to teach them about whatever the case may be, some type of social, emotional justice, social justice, etc., making them activists. That's not what it is. It is about educating the students. And I'm going to say it again. Is 58% acceptable to you? That's what's coming in. And we've all seen it, folks. You go to McDonald's, you go anywhere, and the kid has to make change, and they're like, right? They can't figure it out. You give them extra change to make it an even dollar back, they're like, this is the math teacher in me. I'm like, oh, Lord, honey, don't do that. Just let them get the computer and do it. For me, personally, I have a 4-year-old grandson who will be in the district. All of my kids went through this district. I value Vero Beach. I've been here 12 years now. I've been a registered Republican since I was 18 years old. I'm not fake. I got no drama. Okay? I'm here to stand up for what I believe in. Funnily enough, over $50,000 has been put into this election for the other 3 candidates. Over 50 grand. I can't be bought, folks. I have my own morals and the standards that I have. I can't be bought. But I would appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Thomas Kenny, running for District 4, and since our campaign has started, been endorsed by the Republican National Hispanic Assembly, Moms for Liberty, the Republican Executive Committee, We the People Indian River, and most recently, Personhood Florida Pro-Life PAC. So I'm really excited about that. One of the things coming here is I'm always life first. That's the way I vote. Historically, I've voted that way since the first time I was able to vote, which was Reagan. And I think that's important. If we have life first, everything else follows suit. So whether you're a taxpayer and you have a child in the school or not, the district consumes about 50% of your tax budget, right? And there's three main purposes that I believe that this district should use that money for. The first purpose is popular instruction curriculum and programs. Materials should be free of pornography, critical race theory, transformative social emotional learning, and any other agenda. Okay? It's one thing that happened with the books. They didn't follow the rule or the law 1006.4 where it says curriculum that is purchased, and library books can be used with curriculum dollars, up to 50% of that budget. They have to be free of pornography. It's right there in the law. And grade level and age appropriate. So age appropriate is not measured by whether it's a PG book, an R book, or an X book. It has to be free of pornography and age appropriate. What's that mean? You don't buy a trigonometry book for a kindergartner, right? Because it's grade level and age appropriate. It'd be for a high schooler. AP math or something. That's the point. That was ignored. So with me, it's about that, school safety and operations, and the discipline. Okay? Vote for me, August 23rd. Vote thomaskenny.com, KENNY.com.
So I am, as you all know, a mom of a 14-year-old going on 41. You all have seen him. He's the best campaign manager that there is. And I homeschool him. And I homeschool him for a reason. I pulled him out of first grade from the public school system here because there were some concerns that needed to be addressed that weren't being addressed. I had the opportunity through prayerful consideration to homeschool him, and that's exactly what I did. For us, it was the best decision that we made. But not all parents have that option. Not all parents have the ability to make the decision to pull their child and homeschool their child, or put their child in any other school. And so that's why with my public education background, I have the privilege of having one foot in the door of school option for homeschool and then one foot in the door for public education, which makes me the perfect candidate for school choice and parental rights. So I fully support a parent's right to choose whatever is in the best educational environment for their child. I will tell you that my priorities from 2018, some of them remain the same, like reaching full unitary status on our desegregation order, but other issues have risen that are now on my priorities list. Of course, that is common sense decision making, that is no critical race theory, no mask mandates, and making sure that we have a pro-parent and pro-student, keeping students first agenda, which is aligned with Governor DeSantis as well and his education policies. So on August 23rd, I hope that you consider voting for me, re-elect me, Jackie Rosario. If you want more information, please visit my website for all of my endorsements. You can see them there as well. And more about my experience. I realize that within 1 minute or 2 minutes, you don't get the full experience or understanding of what a candidate is like. So visit reelectjackie.com. Thank you.
Can you hear me? Well, I thank our panel. I want to especially thank Mr. Dale Glading for getting those great questions out. And as you can see by our three fine candidates, how important it is to get out and vote for the school board. And I've got older neighbors that say, well, I don't have any skin in the game. I have no children in school. Why should I go out and vote for anybody in the school board? You can see by the depth of their information here tonight why everybody has a stake in the game. And the stakes right now could not be higher. So I want to thank all of them. I want to thank everybody that was involved with this, because this was truly educational on my part. So thank you, candidates. Don't forget to bring 5 or 10 people with you to the voting booth. I'm preaching to the choir here, so you got to get those people who are on the fence, please. It's too important. Okay, we have before we adjourn, we have our door prizes. Miss Connie is going